Another day, another fitness tracker. Like my Apple Watch, this one also tracks my steps, helps me track my calorie burn, heart rate, all those things. It also shows me the time, who's calling. But if I have a fancier Apple Watch, why should I wear this H band? That's because the H stands for Hyundai and lets me unlock that. Of course, I could use a regular key fob, but then that also means I have to look for a zip pocket when I'm going exercising, track the key, keep it safely. With this, I don't have to do all of that. Of course, I wouldn't know because I don't do all this fitness stuff, but people who do, people who lead that active lifestyle, tell me that it is actually quite cumbersome to carry that key around, and that is probably what prompted Hyundai to do this. Oh, and if you haven't noticed already, this is the 2018 Hyundai Creta, the facelifted one. The Creta's draw has always been its upright stance, which makes it more SUV-ish in profile, and that is accentuated further with this facelift. It comprises of the chunkier bumpers, new vertical daytime running lamps up front, and beefier scuff plates. Contributing further to its aggressive stance are the redesigned diamond-cut alloy wheels. Hyundai has also thrown in new color options in the palette to add to the appeal. And as before, the finish of the paint is one of the best in the class. In a nutshell, the Creta now looks more sophisticated than before, and that sophistication has always set it apart from the other cars in this segment. But to prevent the compact crossover pie from sliding into the Creta's lap in entirety, Renault has decided to re-enter the game with a stylish alternative to their otherwise rugged Duster. Yes, we are talking about the new Captur. Borrows the chic swooping design from its namesake in Europe and pairs it with the low-cost proven underpinnings of the Duster. Its wedge-shaped form and the shouty Renault logo on the nose tend to polarize the buyers, but the Captur has a distinctive design that is appealing in its own way. I particularly like the bold detailing of its lighting elements. The squat stance that it gets courtesy of the low roofline and the flared wheel arches looks quite menacing. Going with the current trend, the Captur also offers interesting dual-tone paint schemes, and the overall fit and finish is quite premium. Sadly, the same can't be said about the Captur's cabin. The scratchy plastics that we agreed to turn a blind eye to in the cost-conscious Duster seem rather low-rent in the more sophisticated alternative that the Captur wants to be. The layout of the dashboard elements could have been more ergonomic too. The instrumentation looks quite funky and is easy to read. The infotainment has a similar layout to other media nav units from Renault, but the Captur's unit is slicker. The seats are fairly large, firmly cushioned, and comfortable on long-distance journeys. The lower roofline, however, can drop the cabin off its headroom for taller passengers. We would recommend choosing fabric upholstery for the seating, as the faux leather upholstery on the Captur retains heat for longer. The Creta is the roomier car of the two, and its cabin design feels more premium and purpose-built than the Captur. Head, knee and legroom is better in the Creta in all of its seats. The Creta also has a less intrusive A-pillar that makes for better visibility for the driver. The instrumentation and the steering controls vary as per the model you choose, but all the displays are easy to read and all controls are intuitive. The Creta also boasts of a slicker, crisper and more feature-rich infotainment system with an IPS screen, and is mated to a significantly better audio unit than the Captur. The seats are more supportive with better contouring. However, the cushioning is on the softer side and can induce more fatigue on longer journeys. I would have also liked ventilated seats at this price point. That said, of the two cars, the Creta's cabin has a better feel-good factor, and new features like wireless charging, an auto-dimming rearview mirror, and power adjustments for the driver's seat give the Creta a clear edge over the Captur. Both the cars are quite closely matched on their safety features. Front airbags, anti-lock brakes and ISOFIX style seat anchorage are standard across the range. The higher variants get you up to 4 airbags in the Captur and 6 in the Creta. The Captur counters that deficit with automatic LED headlamps and wipers. The Captur uses the 1.5-litre K9K diesel engine, quite a common engine across the Nissan and Renault range of cars. We quite like that engine, and the Captur, it's no different. Oh wait, actually, it is a little different. Not in terms of its overall power output, it still produces about 110 PS of power, but in the way it feels in the Captur, it feels a lot more muted. It feels a lot more refined. I'm sure they have not made many changes to the engine, or any changes to the engine for that matter, to improve the refinement levels, but the overall refinement in the cabin in terms of its noise and its vibration feels much better. So the perceived refinement, if I may call it so, feels better than the other cars like the Logi or the Duster that we have experienced this engine in. The Captur only comes with the option of a 6-speed manual transmission, and while that does make it a lot of fun to drive, does come in handy when you're going off the road as well, there'll be a lot of people out there who will miss the convenience of an automatic on this particular drivetrain. Like I said, the drivetrain is quite refined, and the convenience of an automatic would just make it even better. The engine has a linear power delivery and a meaty mid-range, which gives it easy drivability in the city. It runs quite relaxed even at highway speeds, and this laid-back nature helps it trump the Creta's fuel economy figures by a fair margin. Add to it a marginally larger tank, and you get a driving range of close to 1100 kilometers, which is amazing for a tourer. The Captur's Duster-derived underpinnings are a blessing in disguise. The Renault authoritatively tackles potholes and imperfections in the road, and has a hint of firmness in its ride that is typically European. The Captur portrays itself as a more premium alternative to the Duster, but where the platform sharing does show its claws is with the steering. You have that constant kickback, and that translates to a lot of understeer, a lot of unnerving feedback from the steering when you're tackling bends, when you're trying to go faster on bends. While the Duster has a similar shortcoming, Renault had reduced the kickback by a great extent in the AWD variant, and hopefully that should be the solution for the Captur too. That said, despite the lack of an AWD setup, the Captur loves taking on off-road trails and rocky terrain, and fares quite impressively too. So right after its launch, we had taken the Creta from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, taken it across various kinds of terrain, and I have some very good memories of that trip. Of course, it is a front-wheel driven car, it's not an SUV, it doesn't even look like it can go off the beaten path, but it tackles the bad roads or the broken roads quite well. In fact, we drove the car around Zojila, and even in the soft sand, even in the ruts, even in the stones, even in the pebbles, the vehicle absolutely impressed me for what it is. But then I also have very good memories of a Renault Duster, a Renault Logi up in the Himalayas in some of the trickier terrains than what the Creta was subject to. And I think when it starts getting trickier, the Captur will easily outclass the Creta because it has the same underpinnings of the Duster. Yes, it doesn't have a four-wheel drive, there's no all-wheel drive here, neither of these cars get it, but still, this car feels like it is built to do all of that. It feels more robust, it feels more eager to go off the road as well and not just stick to tarmac. And I think that is what the Captur is all about. It has that sophisticated form on the outside, but it's also ready to go off the road, and that's the beauty of the Captur. So if adventure touring is going to be high priority for you, the Captur is your car over the Creta. Not that the Creta is a dud off the road, but to be fair, it isn't meant to go off the blacktop and doesn't inspire the same confidence as the Captur when the terrain goes loose. The Creta's comeback is a surprisingly refined 1.6-litre drivetrain that is not only a class benchmark, but also the more powerful unit in this test. It is a sprightly motor that shows its capabilities with significantly better outright and roll-on acceleration. The Creta continues to be offered with 3 engine options. At the base is a 1.4-litre diesel, and then you have the range-topping, the punchier 1.6-litre units, a petrol and a diesel. And the 1.6-litre engines can be optioned with a 6-speed automatic transmission as well. The one that we are driving is the 6-speed manual to draw a fair comparison against the Captur. I like the strategy that Hyundai India has adopted with its diesel engines. You have the 1.4-litre at the base, so that lets them enjoy all the tax benefits, have a cheaper entry point, and that attracts more footfall to the showrooms. And then you also have the 1.6-litre engine for those who want better performance. The gearbox has rubbery shifts and the clutch pedal has a springy nature, but they aren't as cumbersome to work with as the Captur. The Creta also has better brakes and they don't need a firm push unlike in some other Hyundai cars. It does come close to the Captur in terms of ride comfort though, and has a squishier suspension setup in comparison. It handles surprisingly well for a Hyundai, and the same can be said about its improved steering feel too. But it has a fair bit of vertical movement when hitting the twisties at speed. As you may have noticed then, the Captur and the Creta have drivetrains and handling manners that match the touring and the city slicker intents of these two cars respectively, and that should help you narrow down your buying decision. To sum it up, the Captur is a stylish crossover based on rugged underpinnings. However, in the larger scheme of things, it still feels quite utilitarian in the way it drives, and that will mean it will find limited takers in the cosmopolitan space that tilts largely towards sophisticated soft-roaders. It still manages to put up a strong fight to the Creta, but the Hyundai wins this test by amassing higher points overall and offering a bigger kit, more drivetrain options, and better sophistication.